Hey, what up guys, it's Jack, and welcome back to another video, and I apologize for the X Defiant gameplay because we're going to be talking about SM2 or SM squared in this one, because as of about less than 2 days ago, these guys released an update, and I did not know about it until a few hours ago. So I wanted to talk about that because it's a big update, and there's quite a big change going on, and I figured since this was the other game that a lot of other people, including myself, are interested in, that is basically another Call of Duty, but even more like Call of Duty. So if X Defiant is one side of the coin, then SM squared is going to be the other side of the coin. All right, so they released an update. It is devblog number 4, the future of SM squared. And it is titled, We Need to Talk. So here we go as I read this out loud to you, because I read part of it, but I've not read the whole thing. So I will be just as, this is kind of almost like a reaction, so to speak. So here we go. We wanted to start the year strong with a video showcase of every single weapon, which we decided to premiere on the first day of 2023. Since then, we've seen and heard people craving for more information and news from us, and today is that day. However, everything you're about to read now might not be what you expected. Don't worry, we're not closing shop. This post will explain why we've remained almost silent for the last few months, as we took the without the shadow of a doubt biggest decision we've ever had to make. We decided to move from IW4, which is the original Modern Warfare 2 engine, to H1, which is a Modern Warfare Remastered engine, for technical reasons. We know it's confusing. You might be asking millions of questions right now, and this is what the devblog is all about. We'll take a tour and explain to our best of our ability of why this change had to be made, and what consequences it might have in the near future. We also want to point out that this is not a decision we've taken lightly. We've discussed the potential of the H1 engine quite a lot during the last few months, but ended up clinging into what we had at the time. But now that our backs were pretty much against the wall, we had to make the move. Either that or the end of the project altogether. We want to make it clear that this engine change will not impact the experience and gameplay itself. The project's goal has always been to provide the original and true to its roots Call of Duty experience, and that's not changing. We are still standing very true to our original vision and what the game is meant to be, both for you and for us. What happened in 2022? During the last 8 months, the development of the project basically turned into a technical arm wrestle instead of focusing on the actual content and gameplay. And without the technical issues out of the way, it's impossible to work on the rest without risking the stability of the overall inner workings of the game. At this point, we were not working on the game anymore. We were battling the engine that it runs on. We spent a massive amount of time creating systems especially designed around this engine we first chose. Or rather, recreated most, if not all, the systems already existed in newer games, which basically made us reinvent the wheel on multiple occasions. And while it was a solution to our problems, it just made working on the game very tedious, especially for the last few months. The problems that tip the scales in the favor of the change are the following. Number 1, memory, or RAM usage. The game can only allocate 4 gigabytes of RAM, since it's a 32-bit application. This is very little leg room for a game of this scale, so it limits us, and it allows our workflow, and it stalls our workflow quite a lot. Number 2, image streaming tech, CF devblog number 3 basically. This one stems from the first. While our implementation of image streaming is still greatly reduced RAM usage, it wasn't enough. A much more complex system would have been needed, and it's virtually impossible to pull off at this stage, especially with RAM limitations. 3. Camos integration. Not a deal breaker, but definitely a huge task. Camos needed to work in a completely different way, requiring engine work and custom shaders, and while we got some work done, it was impossible to advance considering the 2 bullets above. 4. UI engine. As we mentioned at the end of the devblog number 3, we started to work on a custom UI engine instead of working with Quake's prehistoric menu files, which systems have existed in COD since Black Ops 2, and was another case of reinventing the wheel. 5. Backend services. A lot of work was still needed before reaching this step, but it was always a big concern we had, not in terms of feasibility, but more about the very high amount of work and cost that it would have required. Another concern was even if we managed to weasel our way around these problems, we would never have been able to expand the game in the long run. For those unaware, we plan to have post-launch content drops, and those would have been out of the question if the game we have with the game we have today. We even thought about simply scaling the project down by removing a large chunk of the content, but that would be counterproductive to not only scrap so much work, but also backtrack on what we promised by sweeping the problems under the rug instead of fixing them. We all trust SM Square's potential, and it's still something we very much want to see in our hands. And as much as it saddens us, it will never be on the IW4 due to the technical limitations we explained above. We all are Modern Warfare 2 modders at heart, but we're ready for that exode if it means delivering the game in its best light and full potential. Moving on to a new engine. As you might have guessed, moving to H1 ultimately helps everywhere we used to struggle before. It offers a much more modern base, and it allows us to expand more on a lot of things, especially in terms of pure content. By far the biggest improvement, getting rid of the limit of 4 gigabytes of usable RAM. While it certainly is a more resourceful consuming engine, it gives us a lot more air so we can focus on content rather than thinking of ways to limit its RAM usage. Like we mentioned above, a lot of the systems we developed are already part of H1, and those that aren't can be moved over. This allows us to have much more sophisticated and robust base to build upon without worrying about looming technical limits. For example, the back-end camouflage systems, even though they'll still need work, are much easier to work with since we don't need to build entirely from scratch. In terms of actual content, H1 will allow us to port maps that would have been out of the realm of possibility before. We'll still retain most of our original map pool, but we now have a greater variety of maps to choose from on release and in the future, while still providing visual improvements, both in terms of aesthetics and visibility. And at the same goes for weapons. Using the newer engine will make working on newer weapons easier instead of having to downgrade some of them to make it fit with the rest. With this engine change and all the graphical and technical advancements it brings, it raises the question of, can you run it? While IW4 could probably run on a toaster, H1 is a bit more demanding, but nothing out of this world, as the minimum requirements are still quite low by today's gaming standards. We can't recommend anyone to play PC games with only minimum requirements, but any shy middle-end gaming computer will allow you to play without problems, while offering a much better looking game that takes advantage of much more advanced hardware. Of course, we want to retain the core experience of SM Squared, and we will make sure that the H1 version plays and feels as close as possible to the IW4 one. All of us, especially the guy that types this, are really attached to the charm and the mechanics of the original Modern Warfare 2 engine, and are ready to make necessary changes to make the game be as close to its predecessor as possible on a mechanical standpoint. Sadly, we don't have anything to show content-wise as of right now. We're tied up re-implementing fundamental engine changes in order to get the work on the actual game as soon as possible. As soon as we have something to show you, you can find it on our Twitter and Discord channels. You might ask yourself, why did you guys not work on a better engine in the first place? Answer is we are all IW4 modders at heart. To us, working on the Modern Warfare 2 engine was as a base was not a choice. It was a given of what was felt natural to use. So we thought we'd be competent enough to deal with all the technical problems that we would have surfaced. And to be fair, it was the case for almost 2 years. This time, however, we're confident that H1 will give us everything we need in order to get this game going. Another question. What about people who planned ahead and bought Modern Warfare 2 on Steam only for SM Squared? For more than a year now, we made it clear that Modern Warfare 2 ownership would be mandatory in order to play SM Square, since the original game is out of the equation. We deemed that this purchase was not necessary since it did not make sense. To everyone who bought Modern Warfare 2 since then, we'll make sure you're granted exclusive rewards. We do not have much more details about them at this time, but we absolutely want to make it right for everyone who selflessly bought the game because they put their whole trust in us. Another note that a refund is possible if the purchase was made directly on Steam, though it needs to respect the platform's refund policy. Another question. Is this ever going to release? Yes. If it wasn't the plan, we would have hung our keyboards up and went back to our own little lives, and you would be reading a very different page today. We are still very much committed in finishing and releasing the product no matter what. Please bear with us. Another question. So you made us wait 2 years for nothing? Answer. Not quite. Even if we were migrating to another engine, not everything we've done is going to waste. In 2 years, the project has matured a lot and many improvements have been made since the beginning, regardless of engine work and technicalities. In retrospect, the difference between our footage from early 2021 and late 2022 is quite important on all fronts. Everything we've learned since the early days is not to be ignored. And like we've said before, quite a lot of our previous engine work can be moved over to an extent. Not all of us at the time, not all of us that time have been wasted or lost. Far from it. Another question. What if I don't like that engine? An old one that's made me, the old one is what made me interested. Answer. This is an option that even people in development teams share, and it's perfectly valid. However, this change is absolutely necessary if we want to deliver the game at all. Like we said multiple times, we passionately love the original Modern Warfare 2 and its engine, and moving over saddens us as much as you. We are also committed to make the H1 version of the project as fundamentally fun and mechanically similar as its IW4 counterpart. Between you and us. First, we are very grateful for every one of you who have stuck with us for such a long time. Seeing people showing their trust and willingness to support the project really is a huge source of motivation for us. On the flip side, we also hear people who might have lost interest over time or think our communication is up to debate, which is understandable. When this project started just over 2 years ago, none of us had any idea of the traction and true potential of it. It was born from the ideas of skills of very few people. It was a big brainstorming of objectives and concepts sitting on a foundation that stemmed from people who met at the right time. So saying we were ready for this many spotlights all at once would be a lie. But at the same time, we are immensely grateful for it and for people's attention and sometimes trust. Even though the team has significantly grown since then, we're still only a handful of people working around a massive project during their free time, apart from their own jobs, lives, and responsibilities. But not on the attempt to sound cliche, we think of it as a pro more than a con. It allows us to get attached to things in a more personal level. We already said that in the past, we will try to be more active between big showcases in the future. This revamp of the game is the perfect occasion to show all the work and passion that is being put into it, and we are committed to show our progress more often than stated above. It goes without saying that we understand the backlash we might face after this announcement, and we take full responsibility for it. We absolutely understand that good or bad emotions you might feel after this change, especially after such a long time. But we can't emphasize enough that this change was absolutely necessary if we want this project to see the light of day. We're immediately grateful for everyone who is and or will be loyal to this project, and that we sympathize with those who don't understand or agree with this change. At the end of the day, SM2 has always been a community project, and everybody, including us, can have divergent opinions of that are valid and should be respected. We are nonetheless very happy that this project has brought so many souls together around a vision that we all share and want to see thrive, and it's our duty to finish what we've started. As we said multiple times now, you will hear from us as soon as we have information to share and goodies to showcase. Thank you. Now, first I have to say, that basically completes the entire article. First, I have to say that, wow, these guys are obviously very humble. They're obviously, it's already been mentioned before, but I'm going to say it again. These guys are doing this on their own time, and they are doing it from a passion standpoint. And there's only a handful of people that are working on this. So overall, in my opinion, despite the fact that there's obviously a delay, I think it's overall a good thing, because what we would have gotten would have been a lack of content. And obviously, those guys would have been working their butts off for like nothing. They would have had to work their butts off and scrapped everything, as mentioned. So I personally think that this is a good thing for the long run, because obviously, if it means we have to wait an extra 6 months to a year or whatnot in order for the game to get released, but for us to truly get that game that we want, then yes, that's great. The only thing that I see now is that SM2 is like, it's only limited in one way, and that is the fact that it's only running on PC. And like it mentioned, you don't need like a top of the line PC or anything like that. You can still have a fairly decent PC or a quote unquote old PC, and it'll still run. But with that being said, it's only on PC. You know, the majority of players are on console, even though there's a higher percentage of people playing PC now. The majority of players are on console, but I think, positively speaking and optimistically speaking, I personally think that SM Square will have, like, when it releases, it'll have a strong start. But I think that it's actually going to grow because I think the popularity of PC players are going to grow. They've already grown, and I think they're going to continue to grow. So I think it could be something that, like a fine wine, it'll age very well over time, and the community base might grow as well in numbers. And these guys are obviously planning to support this game, including post-launch content, as far as I understand. So, and if anything, you know, when you look at this game here, X Defiant, by the time it releases, it'll be good. It'll be, at the very least, for somebody who wants more Call of Duty, so to speak, right? More 100% classic Call of Duty. X Defiant, at the very least, could be a good holdover. It'll hold you over until SM Squared comes out, or SM2. So, or it could be an alternative. So you can go back and forth between two really good arcade arena shooters, which is something that we've always wanted. So, I for one, I'm glad that we've got an update, because we haven't had an update in quite a while. So I'm glad there's some news, and I just happened to see it over Twitter before leaving today to go play pool, which I usually do at midnight. So yeah, and coming back from pool, it's like, yeah, I'm actually more excited now. I mean, do we have to wait more? Sure, but at the same time, if we would have gotten the game sooner in the way that it was going, we would have gotten a hell of a lot less content, and it would have actually been very disappointing, because there were a lot of things that have been said that were going to happen that just wouldn't have come to fruition if it wasn't for this change. So if anything, I'd say this is overall a good thing. And from what these guys are sounding and from what they're saying and everything, I have faith in these guys. And the fact that they're doing this for nothing whatsoever, there's like no profit. It's all about their passion. And here's another exciting thing. Check this out. When the time comes when Microsoft wins the Activision Blizzard deal, I'm willing to bet that Microsoft is very open to hiring these guys to like work on this, or, you know, getting a group together headed by these guys here to keep building the game and making more content off of it and stuff like that. At least a higher chance with Microsoft than it would have been Activision. So, because Microsoft has kind of been known to do that before. So these guys being only a handful of guys and creating a massive project, something as such as this, it's getting attention. Like they said, these guys didn't prepare for the amount of attention that they've been getting, but it's creating attention in this way. So it's like, okay, well, if a game like Killer Instinct can be, you know, just because people were talking about it on the internet for years, if a game like Killer Instinct could be made by a team at Microsoft and released or whatnot and grow over the years and be one of the best fighting games ever made down the line, guess what? So can SM Squared. I think that it's possible. So with that being said, guys, this video is obviously already running long enough. I want to know, what do you guys think about this update? What do you guys think about what these guys had to say? Are you more excited? Are you kind of bummed out? Are you willing to wait? Or have you had enough? I want to know your opinions and thoughts of it, because I honestly think that that right now, the potential of what we're going to get, it just went way up. Like, I think the quality and the potential and everything else, plus the fact that these guys don't have to be working any more tediously than they already are, is also a good thing. So for the long run of the game, it's great. Even if it means there's a delay of 6 months to a year, I think it's worth it, in my opinion. And like I said, X Defiant couldn't have come out, and it couldn't be at a point to where it's going to come out soon enough on a regular at a better time, because it's going to be a good holdover until SM Squared comes out. Plus, you got Microsoft, who's going to be more than likely taking over, so they are likely to do something with this or about this and say, you know what, who did this? And it's like, you know, and then eventually it's going to be like, okay, what's it going to take to get this game to console? And the next thing you know, you'll get the game to console, and with PC as well. So at least the player base will grow like that. And the sky's the limit. When you've got support, proper support, when you have a proper foundation made out of passion like these guys here, and then if you get some big dogs to support you, then after that the sky's the limit. Honestly. So again, overall good news. And I think I don't speak for the community, but I do believe that most of us would agree that waiting longer will be good for the game in the long run. I've heard many content creators out there say, delay this game. I'm willing to delay it as long as it gets completed, and it releases in the way that it should, as opposed to releasing a broken or a half-assed or broken content or lack of content type of game. Because we all know what happened with Halo Infinite. Okay, need I say more? But that's all I got for this one, guys. Let me know down in the comment section what you think, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.